Hi everyone, I'm Karla Fuller, an Associate Professor of Biology at Gutman Community College, which is part of the City University of New York. I'm also a very proud member of the National Association of Biology Teachers two-year college section. I know there are plenty of programs and schools that are really great at delivering online science content. What I hope to do in this video is to start a conversation with you that we can continue during the live Q&A as you think through how you want to set up your distance education science course. So I'll share what worked well and what didn't for me, and then we can use that as a launching point for more directed discussion later on. In this video, first I will just give a brief primer on best practices in online learning and tailor those towards lab courses. Then I'd like to share some specific practices that worked well, as well as some that completely fizzled. And I'll finish up with some adjustments that I'll make for the fall based on my experiences teaching the summer session. I hope that I can help you think productively about how you can implement in real life best practices in distance learning in your science lab-based course so that you can provide the best possible teaching environment for yourself and the best learning environment for your students. This is especially important since in my experience, most of the professional development and resources available right now for distance learning are obviously not made in consideration to those of us who teach in lab-based courses. Here are, in my opinion, the non-negotiables when it comes to best practices in distance education and thinking about how to do that in your science or lab-based course. Number one, chunk your content. So usually we think of breaking our content into units or modules, but you have to think a little bit further than that. How does your unit break into subunits? How does your module break into mini modules? So you really want to break that up. The second item is instruction. It's really easy when just interfacing online to lose the actual teaching part and turn into a person that's just delivering content. So you must remember to provide meaningful instruction. And we'll talk about ways that that can be done in a little bit. The third item here is technology. You have to find the right technology for the job. And the last and most important of these to me is to create an equitable experience for your students. You want an equity-based classroom. That means when it comes to thinking about platform-based learning, technological needs, you have to set your class so that the student with the least amount of resources and support at home can still be successful in your class. And I know for all of us in our classes, we have some really cool and fun, exciting activities that really add value to our students' learning experience. But really at this point, we should probably make our syllabus more concise, focusing on only the learning activities that will help us directly hit those learning outcomes or standards. So if there was ever a time to try backwards mapping, if you're not doing it already, this is the time. Before you start planning your course, you really should just take a beat and think through some of these issues. What labs do students really need in order to hit those mastery goals that you have for them? You should probably cut down the number of labs that you do. Even virtual labs are incredibly time and resource consuming both for you and for your students. And it's difficult in the online setting to give that timely feedback that we're used to in just walking around the room and checking in with students, addressing issues while they're doing the lab. So consider that. And also, what are your students' resource limitations? Does everyone have access to reliable high-speed internet? This is particularly important if you're planning on using platform-based or virtual labs or lab simulations that students have to access by downloading something or viewing high-quality video. How are students accessing your course? Do they have laptops or computers? Are they using tablets? And I find increasingly that many students are only using their cell phones. That's the only resource they have to get on the internet. This will affect the delivery of your platform-based content if you're considering using such. So you, again, have to set up your course based on the student with the least amount of resources. So if you're using a hybrid model and you know that a student will not have internet access on the days that you're not meeting face-to-face, then you need to have alternate assignments ready, packets ready for that student to take with them. It is more important now than ever that all of our students have equal opportunity to succeed in their class, and they have to have an equitable educational experience during this time. The way you design your online distance learning or hybrid course can either increase or decrease that equity gap, and you want to be on the decrease side so that all of your students have equal chance to be successful. Now let's get back to these best practices. When chunking content, best practices say that any video you create should be no more than 6 minutes. Anything longer than that and students start to check out. But 6 minutes is such a short time. So to kind of get around that but still keep student engagement, I do make 6-minute videos, but I use interactive videos. I like interactive videos for core instruction of the really sticky parts of the unit, and then I couple those with more independent learning like read and answer activities or hand-drawn notes. I have replaced a lot of my normal labs with hand-drawn notes tutorials to illustrate concepts and processes. The same goes for labs. Maybe you're used to doing 1 lab per week. This would be really time consuming on your part as well as your students, and requires lots of resources to do successfully while you're in distance learning or in a hybrid learning model. So when you chunk your courses, include your lab content in that as well. Students need to be able to start something and get to a stopping point so they can walk away and take care of family members or trade off computer time or whatever, and then come back and pick it up later before the due date. To me, the most important aspect of chunking is to have both synchronous and asynchronous content. Not all students may be able to meet at the same time every day. A lot of my colleagues express that it's difficult to find a time where everybody can log on and be a part of a class session. I found it best to have all my content asynchronous, but offer daily synchronous office hours and to host a couple of live study sessions each week. If I'm recording a home lab, I tell my students what time I'm doing the recording, and then they're welcome to watch and participate live, or they can catch the recorded version if they miss the live viewing, and then I use one of those interactive videos so that they can participate as if they were there really in the moment. In order for this to work well, you need to have a good visual organization of the content so students can see how the material fits together. I liked creating these interactive unit maps that help students navigate course content in a linear fashion and kept them both on pace and on track. The second item in our best practices list is to be sure to provide instruction. It is easy to default to just giving students readings and worksheets and problem sets, or assigning a virtual lab here, do this lab simulation there, or recording long-winded PowerPoint presentations. But we all know by now that this is an absolute worst practice in education, particularly in science education. Students need time to grapple with new concepts and to integrate new knowledge into their own understandings. So figure out what type of instruction delivery mode is best for you and then include as much of that as possible. For me, I liked recording 3 to 5 minute express videos going over the details of a particular process. I really like pairing a flipped classroom model with interactive videos and hand-drawn notes for this. I ask students to read and answer a few broad or general questions so that I can gauge their early understanding. And then I assign an interactive video, which requires them to pause and interact through either answering questions or participating in an asynchronous online discussion while they're viewing the video. Also, pre-recording a hand-drawn note session and assigning students to draw along with me as they watch the narration of the hand-drawn notes is a great lab replacement, particularly for process-based labs like photosynthesis or diffusion. And that brings us to technology, which is probably the easiest thing to figure out because there's something out there for everyone. Think of what you want your student experience to be, and then find the technology to support it. Remember that platform-based technology may not be the best idea if you do not know without a doubt that all of your students have the right technology to do that successfully. I found that it was best for me to put a little bit of investment into my home lab television studio. In this way, I can make high-quality demonstration videos and upload them to YouTube so students who only had cell phones for their internet access could still watch them well and get the benefit of the content. During the live Q&A, I'm happy to show some of my home equipment, which is really basic, and I have a really simple setup. And I can also share some of the web-based applications that I use to create content for my students. Since we're speaking about technology, you really need to set up a good virtual classroom. Students need a home base where they know they can come to interact with you, to find course material and assignments, to turn in their assignments, and to interact with each other. I know a lot of us use Blackboard, Canvas, Google Classroom as learning management systems, but even if your institution doesn't provide an LMS, you can create an easy one using Google Drive. It's totally free. Here's an example of one created by NABT member Nicole Marie. You see it has everything students need to successfully navigate her course, and it's chunked out, and all of the items on the screen are clickable for different aspects of her course. And finally, rely heavily on open educational resources. They are available everywhere and with just a quick Google search. OER Commons is a great place to find already vetted science, class, and lab-based resources. You can use them straight out of the box. You can remix them or completely redo them, and you can even re-upload them so that they become a resource for other teachers who have a similar student population than you. I think it's great to see some examples anyway of what you want to do, what you're trying to do as you set it up for your students. So even if you don't end up using any of the OER resources that you find, they can be great inspiration for what you want to create. And anyway, whatever you're looking for is probably already on YouTube. That doesn't mean that you have to use it, but again, it could be a really good inspiration. I promised to share some challenges, and according to my experience, some things you should look for are give timely feedback. It took me a couple of weeks to figure out how to do that without working all hours of the day and night. So what it took is for me to communicate my frustration with being able to give timely feedback with my students and having them help me think about our due dates and how we could communicate in between due dates on the work that they're doing and the process and the progress that they're making. It's quite difficult when you have 20, 30 students all turning in things at different times to really go, grade each one and give good feedback that is going to increase their learning effectively. So give some thought to how you're going to do that. And like I said, for me, it was best for me to think through that collaboratively with my students. I also had to work much harder to engage my students during synchronous sessions. So although students responded well to the asynchronous material and they were chugging along and the online discussions were quite robust, the synchronous sessions were a little bit harder. And that brings me to some adjustments that I'd like to make for the fall. Now that we are sort of in a routine in our quarantine, I'd like to replace some of the case studies that I use with civic or citizen-oriented science. Now that students have more flexibility in navigating public spaces, with masks of course, I'd like to give them the option to do some more outdoorsy type stuff while the weather is still lasting, some more reality-based science in their own courtyards or neighborhoods. I'm also trying to figure out how to incorporate more paper modeling, and I need to figure out if that means, am I mailing packets to my students? Am I putting the packets in a central location for students to come pick up? Because I'm fully online in the fall, so I have to think through that. And again, I have a good plan for doing better with the timely feedback in the fall session. So towards the end of the semester, I was talking to the students and I created a schedule. We decided that it would be best to create a schedule of small groups. So in addition to the 1 hour every day of open office, in addition to the 2 hours twice a week of live study table sessions, students were assigned to small groups throughout the week for another 1 hour session. And this was a great way that for me to take students aside in a breakout room if I need to speak to them or they had a question they were embarrassed to ask in front of everybody. And also the smaller groups, I think, gave students more comfort in asking questions or being more vocal. So some students that don't say much in the larger sessions would contribute more in a smaller session. So it's another way for students to stay engaged in the course. What I hope it provides is another way for me to be more communicative with students on a day-to-day basis, and for students to stay engaged in the course and communicating with both me and their classmates to build a sense of community. And I'll just say before I wrap up that one of the ways I figured out what was a real challenge versus a perceived challenge is after the second week of class, I just did a quick student feedback survey. It was completely anonymous, and it was just doing this is going well or this is not going well. And there was an open-ended comment area at the end where students could offer me some suggestions for improvement, and so that helped quite a bit. And so if you're not already doing that as a practice in your classes, I certainly suggest that you implement that now, because the time goes by so fast and we're not seeing our students, and we don't see their body language. We can't adjust our teaching based on the mood of the classroom. So having those quick feedback moments is really helpful in me addressing the things that are challenging both to students and working through my own challenges. So I hope that this information has been helpful, and I look forward to more discussion and hearing your ideas at the live Q&A. Thank you for spending time with me. See you soon.